Your guys' lighting is so much better than mine.
It looks like you have none on. Do you even have a light on, or?
No, I had to turn it off because it looks like I have a halo, and that's just not right.
Yeah,
That just ain't right. No, it was just so bright, but like all my lights from my 3 monitors, right? So if I switch this to like Google, oh, I have light from the side now. Any white background like web page gives me more light. So.
hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 240 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the #1 book review show in Canada. We're recording on June 24th, 2020. Joining me tonight is Gavin, Benny, Dave, and Brent. As always, my name is Andrew, and I'll be your host.
We'd love to hear your feedback about the show, so please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Please feel to tell us how book club has triggered you in any way, or if you'd like us to review any other books. A version of the show is available on Stitcher, iTunes, some other places, Spotify, Podbean, whatever that is.
Google it.
Sounds like for soy boys, but, whatever.
You can check out the podcast on Facebook /Canadian Patriot Podcast and Instagram at Instagram /Canadian Patriot Podcast.
We need your help to support the show. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon today. You get a better quality version of the show for just $1 an episode, and since we've moved to the 2-show-a-week COVID format, Patreons get early access to the midweek show. Everybody else has to wait a week. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $19.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com and follow the link all the way on the right, making sure we're going far to the right. Extremely on the right.
Like Hawaiian shirt, right?
Well, we should talk about Hawaiian shirts too. Amazon affiliate link. If you want the official CPP Boogaloo shirt, Amazon link is in the show notes. Link is all over the website.
They're quite
Please use our Amazon affiliate code so that we get money.
Yeah, they're very silky smooth. You'll be gliding around the range.
Fire hazard.
Possibly.
And surprisingly, the sizes fit as they say.
Nobody likes nipple irritation when they're shooting.
No.
Soap is the best.
You got to wear some Under Armour underneath for sure. It's just not like top quality stuff we're talking here.
It's not bottom quality. Well, anyway, moving on. Let's do my favorite segment. It's called "What Are You Drinking?"
It is still that month.
We're going to start clockwise on my screen, same as always. Gavin, what are you drinking?
I guess in honor of the author this evening, I am drinking Jack and Coke Zero. Also because that's the bottle that I had open, and it's just worked out that way.
Benny, what are you drinking?
Water and Sleeman Original.
Dave.
I got Crown and Coke Zero tonight. Getting a little tipsy.
And Brent.
I had a martini, but in my rush to get in here and make the podcast, I forgot to bring in the Robbie Bird Scotch that I was going to be drinking. So,
well, a martini is classy.
And so
I don't think I've ever made myself a martini. That's fantastic.
You have to be super douchey though. Do it in a bar. Go up to a bartender and explain to them how to make it.
Yeah, shaken, not stirred, or.
That's right.
Oh no, mine are shaken. I shake the shit out of them.
Good man.
Dirty 4 olives. But see, I'm doing it now. I'm being the douchey guy telling you how to make a martini, right? But
sounds like you've done it before.
This is an educational show.
Like character trait.
Done it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the martini fits, I mean.
I am merely drinking water this evening because I plan on reading a lot and I want to try and do a good job of that. Also, I'm drying out for a little bit.
Taking one for the team.
Well, listeners come first-ish. Kind of.
Yeah.
All right,
well, the
so
Patreon.
This week,
yeah.
But that's right. If you're a Patreon, I will narrate bedtime stories for you. We will add a tier for that. It's like the Calm app. Like you can get Samuel L. Jackson or whatever on the Calm app. If you're a CPP Patreon, you get Andrew narrating a bedtime story.
Yeah, and if you
Soft
give
velvety
him enough
voice.
money on the Patreon, he'll get one of those ASM mics, and he'll speak really quietly into it for you.
No, I won't.
Will you play soft music in the background as well?
Obviously.
Vivaldi. We only play
Of
Vivaldi.
course.
Bad stock music.
So it is book club week this month. This is our inaugural rifle and book club meeting. This month we're doing Jack Donovan's The Way of Men. I think this will be a good time. So I'm going to read. We'll discuss some points. I pulled out the highlights. You can see my great many sticky notes in my book because I don't believe in actually writing in my books. So bear with me.
Keeps up the resale value.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just one of those things. Like I can't bring myself to write in a book.
Yeah, me neither. I don't like defacing stuff.
Just wait till
All
you
right, so-
read books in foreign languages.
No.
All right.
That's a lot of work.
Next month, tune in when we read Mein Kampf in the original German.
I was scared we're going in that direction. This might be the last one.
Well, I
guys.
don't know what else we can read in the original German. All right, I'm gonna read the book. We'll go through. You guys jump in when we get some discussion points. Masculinity is about being a man within a group of men. Above all things, masculinity is about what men want from each other. To understand who men are, what they have in common, and why men struggle to prove their worth to each other, reduce male groups to their nucleic form. Sprawling, complex civilization is made up of millions of people, relatively new to men. For most of the time on this planet, men have organized in small survival bands, set against hostile environment, competing for women and resources with other bands of men. Understanding that men react to each other demands an understanding of the most basic social unit. Understanding what men want from each other requires an understanding of what men have most often needed from each other, and a sense of how those needs have shaped masculine psychology. Relieved of moral pretense and stripped of folk customs, the raw masculinity that all men know in their gut has to do with being good at being a man within a small, embattled group of men struggling to survive. The way of men is the way of that gang. And I immediately lose my place as I try to turn the page. So that's the primer on The Way of Men. Donovan goes on, and obviously get the book and read all of the things. I'm just reading the important bits to strike up conversation amongst our gang this evening.
Yeah, this isn't the abridged version of the book. You really should be reading it if you haven't, and hopefully if you haven't, this will give you that little bit of a taste to see if it's something you'd be interested in. I mean, it is, I guess a bit
I went
of
into it totally blind, and
controversial book, maybe.
Yeah, I went into it totally blind,
and
I quite enjoyed it.
I have to say, until I got to the end and read about when I was trying to find out more about the author, I thought it was a good read.
Yeah, I was
going
going
back to that when we get to that part.
I read a few of his quotes and ended up following up with the book, but I was hooked I think pretty much after what you just read, I was pretty much hooked on it. Yeah. And I think I read it in like a day and a half.
Oh, it's super easy read. It's like 100 I think it's like 180 pages.
Yeah, it's conversational too. It's very much like he's speaking directly to you. It's not.
Yeah, I do like the way that. Yeah. So we should go into more of the book, but without going into like a lot of the me reading bits, I like the way that Donovan writes because he writes the same way that he speaks to a group. I've watched a bunch of his YouTube videos and he has a podcast. So if you have free time in your day that CPP is not filling up on your podcast schedule, his podcast is called Start the World.
Yeah.
It's very good. He definitely has a speaking presence, and you can tell that he orates well, but he writes the same way that he speaks. He writes as though he is giving it as a speech. It's a very easy read. Well, it's also only 160 pages.
I mean, he's done a lot of essay work, which we've quoted some stuff from before, like "Violence is Golden" and all of that. And I think that's kind of how we've all got introduced
Violence
to
is
him.
Golden is Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the reason why I started reading Donovan's stuff was because of that essay.
But,
which
like,
I think
he-
you
yeah,
shared with me, Gavin.
Yeah, he does a lot of like in-person speaking engagements as well. So, you know, full confession, I didn't read the book. I listened to it on books on tape, and it was him reading it.
Same
So
here.
yeah, it comes across very conversationally. I like that, like, he doesn't use big words when he doesn't need to. You know, like, it's not, you know, having just finished like Lieutenant Grossman's book on killing, where he's very clinical, and because he is like an actual doctor, he uses big words, and it's very clinical and difficult to understand at times. Whereas Donovan is very just, he dumbs it down,
Meat and
right?
potatoes.
But not in a way that like you feel like he's speaking down to you. It's just explained rather simply and plainly, in a way, that's easy to digest, which I quite enjoyed. I mean, it makes it easy to listen to or read.
All right.
Yeah.
Onward with the reading.
Mhm.
The perimeter. You are part of a small human group fighting to stay alive. The reason why doesn't matter. Conquest, war, death, hunger, or disease. Any of the horsemen will do. You have to define your group. You need to define who is in and who is out. And you need to identify potential threats. You need to create and maintain some sort of safe zone around the perimeter of your group. Everyone will have to contribute to their group's survival in some way unless the group agrees to protect and feed someone who can't contribute due to age or illness. For those who can work, you'll need to decide who does what based on what they're good at, who works well together, and what makes the most practical sense. I mean, really, that is the definition of the gang. This is the beginning of the us and them, the who's on the inside and who's on the outside.
Establish the they with the perimeter.
Well, yeah, I mean, and like I
your
said,
safe space, basically, right?
yeah, and it, like you said, it puts it very plainly. It's us and them. Who's your us and who's them? You know.
Well, and that is the basic of the gang, right? We are us. Who is us? Well, they're the people that look like us or act like us, or that we agree to participate in a group with for whatever that reason is. And a lot of the book is written as survivalist is not the right way, but it kind of like is a end of the world doomsday type scenario that he's frequently describing for his gang.
Yeah, I think that's
the
just
hypothetical gang that they're talking through in the book is like, society is ending. It's kind of without rule of law. How are you going to survive?
yeah, and I think that's just the
I
easiest
think
way
that's-
to illustrate his point, right? Yeah, go on, Benny.
Right, because yes, you're right, Gavin. Because the way he approached it, masculinity was built for that situation, built from that situation where it was literally us versus them. You had to. Like, he goes through explaining it all, but that the way he does it is because that's how he sees it. Where you set up a perimeter, and all these things that you need to do to survive in the Stone Age or even today, just how you do it is a little differently, but the concepts are all still here.
The other thing I liked about it too is that he keeps it very real in a sense that one of the thrusts of the book that I really enjoyed was the fact that he over and over again goes through it, presents the idea that we can't care about everyone, and that we can only have a relationship with about 150 people, and of that 150, most of those are peripheral, and our core group is always very small as humans. And the what does he call it? The empire of nothing, right? The machine, the corporation that's out there always constantly trying to convince us that we have to care about everyone all the time. And it was refreshing to hear him say, you know what? No, it's about a core group. And it's this core group that is really important. I mean, you don't have to care about everybody. That was very freeing for me to have that concept introduced, because we're constantly bombarded by this idea that we have to care about everybody and we all have to get along. And, I fundamentally disagreed with that, and I felt bad that I disagreed with it until I saw his point, until I heard his point of view, because I actually I have the audiobook. But
for me, it's ringing quite poignant, especially just with all that's going on in the news and where we are in the world right now. It really seems like we are kind of on the precipice of reverting back to simpler times, and you really got to kind of take stock and look in the mirror and look at the people around you that you're keeping company with and who would be part of your gang.
with the whole
right now.
pandemic and all the
Pandemic and
riots
everything, exactly.
and everything. I mean, it's
Who's the boys that I'm calling up to make that gang, right? Who are we sticking together with to potentially survive after the fact?
Because
the
I'm
list is short.
rural, I actually call it our catchphrase in my core group is actually "You have a place on my roof," right? That's then.
So you have a lot of Korean friends.
Exactly, Koreans.
That's just the gold standard,
right? But
I mean,
and it's also the crap detail because if you're coming to steal or to share my resources, you're going to have to bullshit duty and be the sniper on the roof, and do the overnight duty. But it's exactly that. Like, who are you going to pick?
I mean, the one point I like that he makes, evolution took thousands and thousands of years, and like civilization has only been a few hundred. So like our brains and our bodies are adapted more to the old world than to the new world.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I also agree. I found that quite. When he said it, you kind of feel it in your day-to-day life, certain things, and when he said it, I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of goddamn sense. It explains a lot of feelings that I have about things in the world that it's just like, why do I get defensive about that, or why does that make me angry or something? And it all goes back to, we've only been dealing with this civilized type stuff for a very short period of time.
Yeah,
our brains are not ready to
shut down so much.
Exactly. Like instead of the guy back talks you in the lineup at a grocery store, and you just everything in your brain says you should just go punch him in the face and knock him right the fuck out for for questioning you. But obviously, we live in a civilized society. That's just not how we deal with things, and you move on.
But
whatever.
Wouldn't it be nice if that was how we did deal with things?
Yeah. Exactly.
Not enough people get punched in the face for acting out in
or
public.
the throat.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Look, Maynard wrote a song about it. You sound like you've never been punched. You talk like you've never been smacked in the fucking mouth. Like people are writing songs about this now.
Well, I mean, what's the quote by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, like about discourteous men and civilization and all of that.
But I see this as a guy who's 50. I see this pre-internet. I grew up when maybe you did punch the guy in the mouth and you got a talking to from the cop, but it wasn't it wasn't this long drawn out legal battle. The guy sues you, you lose your house. It goes on social media and the whole 9 yards. I mean, our culture now may have changed, but it's the exposure you get from doing that, right?
Yeah.
That's what's different. And that's only the last 30 years where that's changed, where it's not okay to punch a guy in the face anymore. And I think a lot of problems in our society right now are a direct result of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of that problem is also that like everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. So like, if you ain't punching people in the face, they've all got plans, and none of it's good.
None of it's good.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to build on this a little bit was the talking about the team size or the gang size. And Donovan uses a bunch of sports examples and military analogy. I really like that kind of that 10 to 15 person comfort zone. That's what a lot of team sports are in that region. It's sort of it's a section or two. Like, it's not quite a platoon size element when you're at 15 people. It's enough that everybody has skills that you can rely on. Everybody can be cross-trained on stuff, but you can still have specialization. It's not a bunch of clones of all doing the same thing, but it's everybody's able to work together, and everyone well enough that you can leverage those skills.
Well, and I mean, he even goes on to kind of go, like, in good times, that size can kind of expand, and you kind of are able to loosen your restrictions on trust ever so slightly. But then, in hard times, that collapses down to that core group of dependable people, which is important.
Yeah, and like I said, sorry, I was going to say, I was thinking about when I was saying I was thinking about the group, I probably couldn't name more than 10 to 15 people that I would want, that I could rely on, or that I would want to rely on.
That's the thing. If it's the end of the world and you have to build your gang, whose house do you drive up to and you get in the truck, no time to explain?
Mm-hmm.
How many people are going to get in the truck?
Right.
Yeah. And then how do you avoid that group turning into 100 people? Because those peripherals, they're like, oh, this is cool. I have a friend who'd fit right in.
Yeah. I have a friend that has guns. He'll help me.
Yeah. You end up with that kind of scope creep in a group, and it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you get like a Facebook group that's got 25,000 people on it. It's just static.
So that's why if you do it in person, you won't have that. The ease of access of clicking join group is so much easier than say rucking it 20 miles to get to that group, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or make even in this day and age, making an effort to like block a weekend.
Yeah.
Right. I was in a Facebook group. Perfect example. That was supposed to be guys getting together at a range going camping for 2 years. I was the only guy who went camping.
Sounds like a terrible.
I feel like that's what we're going to classify that as not successful.
It was not successful.
Well,
But
it was for you. You got away.
It was for you.
I had a great time.
Oh,
But
yeah,
to Benny's
I would
point,
have done it anyway had I not been in the group. It was just watching people watching me camp. It was kind of weird. But
to Benny's point, the rucking 20 miles to get together thing, I think that's another part of when you're doing your gang, when you're building your gang, when you're establishing that group of people inside the innermost perimeter. It's who's going to ruck the 20 miles, who's gonna get in the truck when there's no time to explain. How do you get people together in person, face to face, to do hard things? Because part of group building is doing hard things together, right? That's a big aspect of military training. Is like, yeah, everything you do sucks, but you all do it together as a group, and it all sucks for everybody.
Yeah.
And it builds that esprit de corps,
Sharing
that
the
sense of
suck.
camaraderie. Yeah, sharing the suck. And I mean, like, well, I mean, a bunch of you guys, we've all run matches and stuff together. It sucks to be at the range for 3 days building props and in the crappy weather or running around, or like you and I've dealt with all kinds of administrative nonsense, Dave, working with military bases, or like, it's just like doing those hard things builds that group dynamic, because you know what people are capable of, especially the challenging physical tasks, like what Benny said with rucking 20 miles. When was the last time somebody like went on an actually hard hike with other people, like a technically challenging hike? Because we don't do hard things as a society anymore.
Well, and that's
we don't
part of the
have-
other problem, right?
Well, that's the thing, is we don't have those opportunities for men to go do man things because as soon as you start talking about like a group of men going off in the woods and doing stuff like snicker, snicker, homo jokes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the whole masculinity thing, right? Like, you start doing masculine things, and it's like, oh, toxic masculinity this, toxic masculinity that.
it's the other side.
And like, there are people that would fall into that group, but I don't like calling it toxic masculinity, because I don't consider those people men or masculine at all. It's fake masculinity, right? But like, I'm a guy that likes certain things that fall into that group of masculinity, but I also like to think that I'm a halfway decent person, and like Donovan sort of says, like, you're good at being a man and also a good man, and sometimes you're not both of those things. I like to think that I'm at least somewhat decent at both of them, but like, I don't put on a fakeness where it's like, yeah, I come by these things honestly, which I think makes a difference, as opposed to some people that, try to be all macho and all of this, but like just come off as a douchebag, and you're like, yeah, you're that toxic masculinity, but it's not masculinity, it's fakeness. That's what it is.
Well, I think one of the things too that I got from the book was that you can't have one without the other. And to be that good man, you have to go and explore the other stuff, the caveman stuff, the I want a club stuff, the stuff that's, scratching and farting and sitting around a fire, which is what most people think we end up doing when we go out in the woods.
Which we do, but
yeah,
part of it. It's part of it.
But we do it in key, right? And in sequence.
obviously we're not savages.
Seriously.
Totally.
But I don't think you can have you can't be that good man unless you go to the other side. And it's not really the dark side either, because I don't think being that part of masculinity is bad or dark. I don't want to stick a label on it. It's just being a guy. Guys were, as Benny mentioned, we were wired a certain way, and we're only maybe 3,000-5,000 years away from using that wiring to actually not die and survive. So I don't make any apologies for that, but obviously there's a social contract when we live in a society. We can't go around hitting women over the head with a club and dragging them back home. So, but in order to work in that society, you have to have both. You have to have a little bit of that time. And I think that's the big problem now is guys just don't get an opportunity for that time.
So that's interesting.
We're so buried by being task saturated, being on the internet, and we get bombarded by all this stuff, and we just don't have the time, and it's really hard to make time to go and do that stuff. Right? That's why I've been trying so hard just to go camping. And when I go camping by myself. I don't go with a cohort because I'm still looking in, right? But I need to go camping with somebody else. But that's at least starting with that. But I don't think everybody gets a chance to do that. And I'm suspect of people who don't, of guys who don't. If you don't go and physically take those chances or do something like that, I question whether or not you would be on my roof.
So that's interesting because I felt, and I may have missed this part, but I felt like he separated being a man and being a good man. Yeah. Not to say that you had to be one, you had to be a man to be a good man. Yeah. I felt like he really did separate those two, where you could be a good person, but not fill all of the levels of masculinity, and you could be a really masculine man, but be a horrible person. Yeah. So, I don't know.
That's why it's important for you, and however you define it. And he has a bunch of things that I guess we're going to go through on how you define whether you fit into those. But the ideal is being a good man who's also good at being a man. That's
Let's use that as our segue to talk about
you guys are probably talking
virtues. Did Benny's? Well, we're just going to imagine that Benny's still here.
My internet just crapped out.
No, you're good.
I got it.
All right, so I'm going to use that as our segue into the tactical virtues. What virtues do you need to cultivate in yourself and the men around you to be successful at the job of hunting and fighting? When your life and the lives of the people you care about depend on it, you'll need the men around you to be as strong as they can be. Living without the aid of advanced technology requires strong backs and elbow grease. You'll need the strong men to fight off other strong men. You won't want the men in your gang to be reckless, but you'll need them to be courageous when it matters. A man who runs when the group needs him to fight could put all your lives in jeopardy. You'll want men who are competent, who can get the job done, who wants to be surrounded by morons and fuck-ups. The men who hunt and fight will have to demonstrate mastery of the skills in your group uses to hunt and fight. A little initiative, a little inventiveness couldn't hurt either. Sorry, it's hyphenated and I lost my spot. You'll also need your men to commit. You will want to know that the men beside you are us and not them. You'll need to count on them in times of crisis. You want guys who have your back, men who don't care about what other men think of them, aren't dependable or trustworthy. If you're smart, you will want other men to prove they are committed to the team. You'll want them to show that they care about their reputation within the gang, and you'll want them to show that they care about your gang's reputation to other gangs. And then he goes on with the next four chapters are all about the tactical virtues, and those were just touched on: strength, courage, mastery, and honor. Yeah, strength, courage, mastery, and honor. And we can go through each of those, but that's sort of what he was building up to. Strength, I think strength is pretty straightforward. Let me get my handy dandy quote here.
Yeah.
Strength, in the strictest physical sense, is the muscular ability to exert pressure. Strength is the ability to exert one's will over oneself, over nature, and over other people. And there's some other discussion in here about masculinity and women, and it's not that women can't be strong, but on the whole, on average, men are stronger than average women, and it's okay because
well, and I like how when he does define that, he says, there are women that are strong, but if there are women that are not strong, that's not a knock against them. Whereas if you're a man and you're not strong, that's a knock against you, which is what makes it a masculine trait.
Yeah. But he also does cover the ability for that not so strong man to do something else that might
put him on.
You need to bring it up in the other tactical virtues. You need to have more mastery, or being one of the main ones. Smarts, something that you've mastered,
Yes.
that you're good at, that fills the gap
Yeah.
for the strength.
He's not a great fighter.
It
but he's a
does-
great sword.
Right. It does no value for you to have a whole team of power lifters if none of you can count past potato.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So
Yeah.
you can all lift heavy things, but you can't count how many heavy things you've
starves
lifted.
to death.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's
Nobody can cook.
Yeah.
you have to be able to balance, and I really like those four what Donovan calls the tactical virtues: strength, courage, mastery, honor. Those are good building blocks of manliness, of things that are, because
Yeah.
we don't look at women for these virtues, not as on the whole. And again, like
Yeah.
whatever, we're gonna get hate mail from some radical feminist, but women can be strong. But we're not talking about individual
Yeah.
women. We're talking about on the whole, men are biologically built a certain way, and it's because we
Well, and-
walk on our legs and we stand upright, and we aim to beat one another before we start to develop tools to more effectively beat one another to death.
Well, and
So
and,
we have
you know,
all of that upper body strength.
and all of these things, yes, women can certainly have these attributes and have them in
Spades.
greater number than certain men, absolutely. But
But
their
on the whole,
femininity isn't judged based on these characteristics.
no, and
So
that's,
that
I
doesn't
think,
make
is the
them
other
inherently
again, it's a
female. It makes them inherently
distinguishing-
masculine. Yeah.
a distinguishing biological factor is biologically men are cheap. Reproduction is expensive for the person doing the reproducing, right? Like human reproduction is 9 months of pregnancy, the last several months at least, where women are incredibly vulnerable to the environment that they're in. They're
Yeah.
not very mobile. They're certainly not running around. Like they're not fending for themselves. Like, not that they
Well,
can't. And again, modern society notwithstanding, where you have all of these conveniences, that yes, you can DoorDash
Yeah.
and skip the dishes your way into obesity and whatever. But like, on the whole, women are vulnerable during pregnancy, and then small children are vulnerable for years and are very closely bonded to their mothers, who are there to rear them. Whereas your investment biologically as a man is 30 seconds of a good time, and maybe you're a good father that stays around to help raise your children.
Right.
But strictly speaking, though, that's not needed. You don't need to be like, you don't need a father figure for
Yeah.
the child to grow up successfully. Yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff about having strong men in a child's life, and a good role model,
Yeah.
and good masculine role models and all that.
But
But
yeah,
like, the child will still grow up regardless of whether or not you have a
Yeah,
biological father present.
the man's role in the equation is over and done with, and then can go about being strong and masculine, and setting the perimeter and defending the perimeter and all of
Well, and
those
that's part of
things.
the thing is, if we're defending the perimeter and a man dies, okay, it probably sucks for that tribe or that group or that gang, but the progeny and the offspring still survive. The tribe as a whole still survives. You're not
Yeah, well,
you're
and
not losing anything. Where if you lose reproductive women from that organization, that group, whatever it is, then like you possibly lose that entire group, right? If you have no women capable of reproduction, well, you just have a bunch of guys in the woods farting and making campfire jokes. Right?
Well,
Now,
I mean,
how long does that last?
if the
Well,
tribe-
until
if the tribe lost those women, then what are the chances of the men in that tribe being strong enough to go find other one? Right?
That's why he talks
Yeah,
about
if they let their women get taken away in the first place, so the downfall of that tribe, right?
yeah, I mean,
So-
men need women and women need men, but we have different roles.
he talks about it briefly when he talks about the
Yeah.
Romans. They realized this, so
Yeah.
they did something about it.
Right.
Yeah,
in
I'm
order-
not advocating women stealing, but I mean, like, if we're in that situation where we actually have to have tribes and defend the perimeter, then yeah, the men, the gang of men with the women, they're gonna
They're
their
the ones that
tribe
live
is going
on.
to- they're
Yeah,
well,
Yeah.
right. You die two deaths. You die when you die, and you die when your name's never spoken again. So as long as your tribe continues to function, then like
Well.
you've done your thing as the man in that group, right? You've provided for that gang.
You've
yeah. I mean,
continued the
even
bloodline.
Robin Hood and his merry band of men figured that out and went after Maid Marian. Otherwise, it just would have been a bunch of dudes in the woods, telling dick and fart jokes, and then once the last of them's gone,
No more jokes.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
no more jokes.
Well, keep in mind too, there's strong women in the equation who would just stab a guy in the face.
Well,
Yeah,
which I think
Yeah.
Right?
I don't have any issue with that, and on not taking into specific circumstances with like, yes, there are women that are stronger than a lot of men, but
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can
Including
averages are
channel.
not-
Yeah.
you could write the analog book in mirror image for women and say
Yeah,
strength,
I think
mastery,
so.
honor are in their own feminine way. They could be strong and exhibit
Absolutely.
mastery and courage, and you know but they would be a different set of parameters than guys are stuck with.
I think so, and I don't
Wonder
think
if
that we
women
would,
are
if
judged
we were
like
talking.
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing is, if we were talking with women, I don't think we would judge them based on those 4 tactical virtues, because we
No, probably not.
judge women on different, like, biologically they're just more valuable.
I think it would be more like strength of character and things like that, rather than physical strength.
Physical
Well, there'd be a
strength, sure.
conversation about how women are perceived by other women too, because let's face it, when we're talking about the 4 tactical virtues, we're talking about how other men perceive our ability to be.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know.
Let's talk about one of those with the some of the decisions that men maybe don't make, which is why we're less biologically valuable. The sometimes courageous but stupid things that we do.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, guilty.
It's only one floor
So-
up.
Yeah.
The way that Donovan describes it, courage is the will to risk harm in order to benefit oneself or others. In its most basic amoral form, courage is the willingness or passionate desire to fight or hold the ground at any cost. In its most developed, civilized, and moral form, courage is considered a decisive willingness to risk harm to ensure the success or survival of the group or another person. So that's kind of what we were just like, the difference with men and women there is men will
Sacrifice for the
maybe
good
not
of the group.
make the wisest personal decision for the best outcome for their group,
Mhm.
right? Because again, part of that is I think the biological value of men, like outside of the gang, in the larger tribe, in the cohort of men and women, men are not as valuable biologically, reproductively, but
Yeah.
without men making those, I'll use the word sacrifices, the rest of the tribe is at risk of the others, the invaders, the barbarians, the whoever it is at the gates, right?
Yeah.
The outsiders.
Yeah, I mean, men will go and risk harsh environments to go and explore, to get new territory, to get food, to get resources and things like that. And yes, because we're better suited to that physically, and also if we happen to, die whilst doing it, which many of us did back in the day because we do stupid things, big deal. The reproductive capability of the tribe was still there. It would just be some other guy that spends his 30 seconds doing the deed in order to have the tribe grow stronger and
who
replenish
didn't
itself.
die.
Yeah.
Whose DNA was obviously superior.
Yeah.
Because he's still breathing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know that it necessarily that person is superior just because they were around to do the biological function. I mean,
Well, yeah, but still.
and that gets
one
into what
would
Dave
hope.
was saying with
a
like
little bit,
with the
little bit of
Roman
Darwin
example
there.
later.
Darwin.
Yeah.
Little bit.
And the women are not doing that because they have the baby, right? They're home
Yeah.
and can't physically, go to war, go exploring in the Arctic with a 9-month-old kid, right? So makes sense.
On the whole, I mean, not to say that those things haven't or don't happen, and not that women can't be
Yeah, I
soldiers
mean,
or warriors or those other things, but
Look at the Amazons. Like, they were crazy strong warrior women. So yeah, like, obviously there are people out there that are proving everything we say wrong, but as a whole,
On average.
the biological expense of it is the other part, because
yeah.
it is difficult for a pregnant woman to go exploring a new continent. It is difficult to haul small children around with you in the wild.
Yeah. And yeah, it's difficult and it's stupid. It's needless.
Well, it's
Right,
needless, and that's when you have a bunch of perfectly expendable 20-year-old men that can go and do that. You use them first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on to mastery. Mastery is a man's desire and ability to cultivate and demonstrate proficiency and expertise in techniques that aid in the exertion of will over himself, over nature, over women, and over other men. So, like the one-line summary, mastery is being good at things. It doesn't really matter what the thing is. Mastery is being good at a thing. And there's lots of things to master, right? Some of them are part of the other tactical virtues, like strength, like the powerlifter example. Like you could master powerlifting, which is also a feat of strength. But
Yeah.
you could also master shipbuilding, or master shooting, or master growing food, or
Repair
whatever
and building,
those-
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, even
Building the
going
farms.
back to the strength thing, it's one thing to be able to lift, 500 pounds. That's great, but to be able to do it and know when to go full force or 3/4 force, or like that, shows mastery in that you know when and how to do something correctly, not just like Hulk smash.
Well, and the other thing that I think falls into mastery is the ability to explain it to others.
Yeah.
I think that's really
taking it
where,
to another
where
level of
true
teaching.
mastery is. Well, I think that's the thing, is like when you've not only are you able to demonstrate proficiency at the skill, but you're able to explain the skill to someone else and coach them in how to use it. I think that is a better demonstration of actual mastery of a skill, because like anyone can turn a wrench, but can you explain to another guy why to turn which wrench?
Like, can you explain to the apprentice why he's doing something? He knows how to change the part, but can you explain to him why he's changing the part? Because once they understand why, then they in turn will learn how to diagnose, fix, and understand the system they're working on.
There's a story floating
I think
around social media on that, right? The guy comes in and says, "Oh, my thing's broken." The guy walks in, goes, "Yep, whack with a hammer, $10,000 to fix it. It cost me $5 to come over here and hit it with the hammer. It costs you $9,995 because I know where to hit it."
Mhm.
Right. So I think mastery is more than just the physical act of it too, or the exercising which is that skill. I think it's the art of it too.
Oh, 100%.
The artistic ability to, I think that's the subtlety that you're reaching for, right?
I find mastery is honestly like that. That's probably one of the biggest things that I enjoy where I'm at in my career, is I'm at the mastery stage where I'm teaching others. I've learned everything I want to know, and now I'm passing it on to others to kind of bring them up to my.
Yeah, I mean, you've done your 10,000 repetitions in order to be a master at something, but like it goes above and beyond just being able to do the thing proficiently. It's being able to pass that knowledge and those nuances that you've learned through blood, sweat, and tears on, and allowing somebody else to also become a master of that particular thing.
Yeah, and one of the things actually, it's funny because I'm actually I know a guy named Ian Strimbeck, and he was Rune Nation. He was actually on the first podcast that Jack did, his podcast, and one of the things that is essential to mastery, and everybody sees it, but you don't, as the guy who's being the master, is making it look easy, right? You've mastered it when somebody walks up to you and goes, "Dude, you make that look like nothing." And it takes me hours to do that, or it takes so much effort for me to do that. And you make it look easy. That's definitely one of those parameters for mastery.
So like a classic example that's a little religious based is you sit through the sermon and you wonder why the sermon took 2 hours. When you go to someone else, you're like, "Why did the sermon take 2 hours? I could said the same thing and you say it in 5 sentences." And really what that shows is the mastery of the other person to convey that information in a way that you now can convey that message over in those 5 sentences.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something Gavin and I were discussing pre-show about this section of the book. Is the middle section with the tactical virtues is long, and I think a lot of that is because of
what's the meat of the book, right?
I think it's the explanations around some of this stuff, because different people learn things different ways. So you have to, it seems repetitive sometimes reading this book, but he's just explaining the same concept from different points of view, hopefully with it resonating with more readers, not just me picking out the choice little quotes to read.
Yeah. No, I think that's part of it.
The final tactical virtue is honor. Honor is a concern for one's reputation for strength, courage, and mastery within the context of an honor group comprised primarily of other men. And he goes on to talk about, I think, other things around honor that do a better job of explaining it than what honor itself is, but rather what it is not. Specifically, dishonor and types of dishonor, the flamboyant dishonor, and the one thing I'll take exception to in this section, this virtue, is that the honor group needs to be primarily with other men. I would say that for masculine virtues within an honor group, the honor group must be comprised of other men. You can have another group of mixed genders, and you can have another group with a man and a woman or whatever. But I think in the concern of these 4 tactical virtues, in this sense of within the gang environment, the honor group is the gang. The gang is other men. It's those 10 other guys, including Brent's one that gets stuck with roof duty. It's those 10 guys that are going to rely on one another to do the hard thing, to do whatever it is at the perimeter that needs to be done, the hunting, the fishing, the fighting, the killing,
you seek their approval,
things,
and you want.
well,
and you
I don't
want
even
to.
know if it's about seeking their approval. It's about
Reliability.
establishing your stature within the group. I think reliability is part of it. I think it's establishing your stature within the group, and also your group's stature in relation to other gangs.
Yeah. Like you want to feel valuable to the group, right? You want to know that you have value to the group.
I mean, honor is the trust, right? Like you could be really, really, really good at whatever it is, but like if you're not trustworthy, that means you have no honor. So like, who's going to want to partner with you?
Yeah,
well,
right.
That's kind of what I was getting at really early on with the get in the truck. There's no time to explain.
Yeah, you could be the best fighter in the world, but like, if you don't really have anyone that you stand by, you have no honor. So like, who's going to really want to have you on their side? Nobody, because you'll fight for anybody. So
well, that's kind of where reliability came out for me.
Yeah, like
I can rely on that, right? I stumble, I put my hand out, my hand's automatically on your shoulder, and I don't have to think about it. I just bang, it's right there. That to me is the gauge, is the ability for me to not think about whether you are there or not, whether you're committed or not, whether you're going to back me up or not. That's that honor that I know I don't have to ask. And it goes back to what we said earlier about doing hard things together. Right?
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's
a sense of how reliable a guy is if you don't kind of go through something a little rough.
Yeah, to me, it's like it's reliability, loyalty, commitment, like all of those things kind of rolled into a qualitative assessment of somebody. Like it's
the 3 previous virtues.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Because
right?
like, you know, somebody could be pretty unreliable when it comes to certain things, but like they're still honorable-ish.
Yeah. But yeah, the guy might not be at all the meetings, but at that one meeting where you're like, dude, you got to be there. This is serious. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Degrees.
All right, that brings us into something Benny touched on earlier, and this is the being a good man. There's a whole chapter on that, but there are other virtues that Donovan talks about. There are other things that he goes into, and I think this is the part that there's a difference between being a good man and being good at being a man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump in on this more, Benny, now that we got to that part?
Being good at being a man, Pat Mac, basic dude stuff. Nailed it.
I love basic dude
that's
stuff.
What he's talking about, right? Basic dude stuff. Pat Mac, that's what he's talking about, is being good at being a man. Basic dude stuff is shit you need to know how to do as a guy, and that is that side of it, right? It's fundamental skills that get you through being a dude, like how to it's literally basic dude stuff in my opinion.
But then
like
being
how
a
to
good man,
grill a steak, how to fix a small thing around the house,
how to change a spare tire.
So if you're on the Instagram, if you're on Instagram, go follow T-Max Inc. TMACSINC. It's Pat McNamara. He's former Delta Force Special Forces U.S. Army guy. He was like really, really top tier operator. Also, the Rebecca and Pat McNamara show on Instagram is him and his wife, and it's the behind the scenes version. His wife is funnier than he is.
Mm-hmm.
He gets all his material from her.
But yeah, I would say being a good man is then using those things that make you a good man and being able to use those things to contribute to the group. I would say.
Well, and just being on good terms with your tribe,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Of course.
you could be really like you said, you could be the best hunter, you could be the guy that lifts 10,000 pounds, and you could have mastered whatever it is. But like, if you're a dickhead, you're not a good man, right? If you don't have that honor,
Yeah, don't
you're
be
not a good man.
Yeah.
Even though you could be good at being a man.
Yeah, and
Well,
I think there are other.
Look at Jenner. He was a fantastic man. He was an Olympian. Now he's a chick.
What?
Right? He's gone
But I guess-
completely the other way.
As he got Woman of the Year, he is also good at being a woman.
If you believe Time Magazine.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But, yeah, I think it's fundamental. The two things are it's two different things. One is a set of skills, and the other is how you implement those skills and use them in real life, right? And how you use them, like was mentioned, in your community and to make your tribe better.
Yeah. And the willingness to do that. Like, you shouldn't have to be bribed or coerced into doing it. You should be doing it because it's the right thing to do, the correct thing to do, and it doesn't necessarily benefit you, but it benefits the tribe.
The thing that I would add on to that is part of the honor group within the gang.
Yeah.
If you're not doing the thing that you should be doing to the benefit of the gang, the other members should be holding you accountable within the honor group. Hey, stop being a shithead and go do that thing that you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Go take out the trash, or go pull your shift, or whatever.
Always be working. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Always contributing.
The rest of the book is more to do, I think, with the downfall of modern civilization, the balkanization of America, the fracturing of the West, the whatever you want to call it, the
Empire.
rampant. Well, I mean,
I like to call
Becoming
it
a
the
Barbarian is a great
pussification.
book on that. Yeah, whatever we're calling it, but the rest of the book is kind of that. It's the globalist, feminist. Everyone
Politically
is
correct.
litigious. Everyone has an opinion that we need to respect, and we need to care about so many other things that are
and I
outside of the
think
tribe.
That's one of the interesting things that I think he touches on in the book, in that he says that, like, so things like listening to the other person's side of the story is a traditionally feminine trait. And in a tribal setting where you've got a small group of people, that is absolutely imperative to survival, in that, like, when you have friction between two men in a tribe, which is going to happen because we're all competing against one another, you need to have that feminine influence to say, hey, you need to hear their side of the story so that we can reach an amicable sort of middle ground and end this beef and continue on performing for the tribe. The problem is like, on a macro level, you can't do that, because you can't listen to the other side of the story when it's them, because then that's when you start getting all of your morals and everything else mixed, and you're like, oh, well, whatever, I guess we have to, like, respect them and do, like, when you don't have to do that, because, like we said, like, how do you care about 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 1 million people that have absolutely nothing in common? It doesn't mean you have to hate them or think less of them. It just means you don't have to think at them at all. It's not your responsibility. It's not your problem.
I think this is where it comes, where he's at the beginning of the book, he points out that being feminine, or feminine, not necessarily feminine, or feminine, sorry, is not a negative trait. It's more of the opposite side of masculinity, in which case men and women balance each other out. Men set it at 10 people in the group, And the women are like, well, we got to hear from everybody, but the man sets the standard at 10 people kind of thing in that case.
Yeah, I mean, it's the yin and the yang. It's not that one's better than the other. It's just that in certain instances, one is preferable to the other because it's better suited to it. But you need both
I think
halves.
this is part of the difference between where we're dealing with the gang, the honor group, the 10 guys who get in the truck when you say, I need you to get in the truck.
Yeah.
We have a thing to
Get
do.
in, losers. Yeah.
We're going to Deutschland.
And the rest of, and then the rest of the tribe. And I mean, this kind of gets into the whole Bonobo Masturbation Society bit. Everybody has to, women or incredibly effeminate men or men that don't have that honor group are running things, and now we have to listen to everyone's opinion. And well, now we don't even have to listen to their opinion. We have to respect their opinion. Well, now we don't. Respecting their opinion is not good enough. We have to treat certain groups differently because they were previously oppressed.
Yeah.
You're not clapping loud enough now.
Yeah, we all end up being the bonobos, which is basically a monkey that sits around beating off all day.
Should we kind of go over what we're talking about? Because there's 2 chapters that he dedicates to it.
I mean,
there's
I don't
about
really want to talk about the bonobo masturbation, but okay, so high level. Chimpanzees, small groups, warring tribal bands with one another. They get together and they do man things.
The way it used to be.
Bonobos, feminine hierarchy, a matriarchal society. They have larger organizations that are run by women, or I guess the female bonobos. I shouldn't call them women, I suppose.
The men are largely useless.
Well, not that they're useless. They're not
matriarchal.
valued.
They're sperm donors.
Well, they're not
that's
valued
it.
That's
because
useless.
they don't need to do hard things. They live in a different.
They're
they live in
vegans
that
and they
place
don't
of
need
plenty
to get
where-
meat.
Yeah.
Exactly. They don't need to hunt and gather and do those hard things, and they're not competing with other violent neighboring groups. The perimeter is just the edge of the area that they live at. There is no other for them to war with.
Yeah.
So it ends up being that, like, well, sex is not just reproduction now. Sex is for fun. So I'm going to go sit over here in the corner and masturbate. And, well, a bunch of these other fuckers are going to have an orgy over there. And, well, maybe we'll engage in this homosexuality while we're at it, because we're not really doing this because it's a reproductive thing. We're doing it because we're killing time until it's time to go eat again.
Yeah.
The thing that struck me about that where he describes that was the fact that they were resource rich, right?
That's
really the thing is what happens when the rainforest gets cut down and they don't have any fucking food. What's going to happen to that wonderful masturbation society? It's all going to go to hell, right?
I think
that's when the chimpanzees will come in and just
the chimps are going to come in and they're going to monkey stomp them, which is what chimps do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they will eat them. They will turn into food for the chimpanzees.
Exactly.
Because chimpanzees are crazy.
And I don't have a problem with there being a bonobo society and people choosing to go down that road. But I think the real problem is that they choose to penalize me and look down at me because I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
or I think we've forgotten that we came from the chimpanzees. I think is probably one of the biggest problems these days is we forget our history and how we got to this time of
earlier.
easiness.
It's that we're more suited to the old world than the new world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, certainly the lazy beat off society exists. We just call it Chaz now. And
Chop.
Sorry. Let me read. I've got a good beefy paragraph here at the end of one of those chapters about the masturbation monkeys. In the future, the globalists and feminists have imagined, for most of us, there will be only more clerkdom and masturbation. There will only be more apologizing, more submission, more asking for permission to be men. There will be more examinations, more certifications, mandatory prerequisites, screening processes, background checks, personality tests, and politicized diagnosis. There will only be more medication. There will be more presenting the secretary with a cup of your own warm urine. There will be mandatory morning stretches and video safety presentations and sign-off sheets for your file. There will be more helmets and goggles and harnesses and bright orange vests with reflective tape. There can only be more counseling and sensitivity training. There will be more administrative hoops to jump through to start your own business and to keep it running. There will be more mandatory insurance policies. There will definitely be more taxes. There will probably be more Byzantine sexual harassment laws and corporate policies and more ways for women to protect identity groups to accuse you of misconduct. There will be more micromanaged living, prettier regulations, heavier fines, and harsher penalties. There will be more ways to run afoul of the law and more ways for society to maintain its pleasant illusions by sweeping you under the rug. In 2009, there were almost 5 times more men either on parole or serving prison terms in the United States than were actively serving in all the armed forces. If you're a good boy and you follow all the rules, if you learn how to speak passively and inoffensively, if you can convince some other poor sleepwalking sap that you are possessed with an almost unhealthy desire to provide outstanding customer service or increase operational efficiency through the improvement of internal processes and effective organizational communication, if you can say stupid shit like that without laughing, if your record checks out and your pee smells right, maybe you can get yourself a job. Maybe you can be the guy who administers the test or authorizes the insurance policy. Maybe you can be the guy who helps some soulless global corporation make a little more money. Maybe you can get a pat on the head for coming up with a bright idea to put a bunch of other guys out of work and outsource their boring jobs to guys in other places who are willing to work for longer hours for less pay.
Gold. Fucking gold.
Whatever you do, no matter what people say, no matter how many team building activities you attend or how many birthday cards you get from someone's secretary, you will know that you're a completely replaceable unit of labor in the big scheme of things. No sprawling bureaucracy or global corporation can ever love you. They have public relations budgets and human resource departments to protect their interests and their bottom lines. There is no us. A global entity can't care if you live or die or if you're happy. If you're a good boy and you're well groomed and you have a job and you learn to say the right things, maybe you can convince the nice girl to let you have her. Maybe you can convince a nice girl to let you give her a baby and help her pay for it. If that's not your thing, you can spend your money getting drunk or busy your life trying to hump whatever piece of ass strikes your fancy. Sex, after all, is social in the Bonobo Masturbation Society. You'll have the hard-won right to rub yourself against whatever makes you feel good as long as you follow the rules. If you're a good boy, you can curl up to the womb of your safe little Soviet Nouveau block apartment with your comfy stuff and enjoy your measured indulgences, your gourmet food, your microbrew. You can busy yourself trying to master the art of easing your own carbon footprint, or you can do your part by biking to work, weaving recklessly through the barrage of trucks and cars that could crush you for the sheer thrill of it. Maybe you'll take a class and get a permit after another clerk confirms that you're competent enough to be licensed and properly insured. You'll be able to do something really crazy, like ride a motorcycle. Maybe you'll pay someone to let you play a game or run a race or put your safety harness on and climb fake rocks. If not, you can always watch someone else do it on TV. Maybe you'll get yourself worked up about some petty inequity or injustice and participate in some non-violent resistance. Maybe you'll convince yourself that you're making a difference by standing in the same place with other people shouting angrily at people who don't care. If you prefer, you can get online and vent your confused, impotent, vainglorious rage by playing the anonymous tough guy on some blog or forum. Or you can just say fuck it and spend your money on video games and give your vicarious thrill of slaughtering hordes of aggressive others. You can obsess over your fantasy football team, and there are always hobbies. You can find yourself something harmless and inoffensive to pass the time, perhaps gardening. You could start a band or tinker with cars, become a movie buff. You could paint little figurines of warriors. You could even get dressed up in costumes and do live-action role-playing. Whatever you do, just find some way to busy yourself. There's nothing wrong with any of these things. All of them are fun. And fun, what is fun, if not masturbating your primal brain a little bit? I like having fun. There's no harm in having a little fun, which is why it's called fun, and not something deadly serious like survival or war. If that is all that your life is about, is chasing fun, is that enough? Is this level of civilization, is all this peace and plenty worth the cost? How long will men be satisfied to replay and reinvest the complex dramas of the past through books, movies, and games without hope of experiencing any meaningful conflict in their own lives? When will we grow tired of hearing these stories of great men long dead? How long will men tolerate this state of relative dishonor, knowing that their ancestors were stronger men, harder men, more courageous men, and knowing that this heritage of strength survives in them, but that their own potential for manly virtue, for glory, for honor, will be wasted? We know what the way of men has been. Is the way of the bonobo the only way that is left?
It's a good closing statement.
I said it was beefy, but it's so good. It's so
It
good
is.
for like 2 pages.
I remember
Yes.
reading that and just dying, just
Yeah.
dying, just laughing.
Well, I mean, it's-
And,
I mean, the
and
first
this
part of
book
that.
was written like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's 2012,
And
I
it's
believe.
like, yeah,
The
I
first-
think it was published in 2012, and he started writing. It took him a year to write it before that, but like, it's applicable
Wow.
to things that are in the news this month.
Well, that like
Yeah,
the
right
first
this
part of it
moment.
sounds like you're working for a Japanese company. Like, let's be honest, right?
But I
Like,
mean, any company.
Well, yeah,
I
but I
love
mean, they
making the
started
bottom
to,
line
like,
better.
they do the calisthenics, they do the matching uniforms with the reflective stripes. Like, I mean,
But that, like, I was listening to a podcast last night, and someone was complaining because their parents, being Asian, wouldn't let them go to one of the protests because their parents' idea of how to move forward in America was stick your nose to the grindstone and work hard, and you'll succeed like they did. And the response was, that's a very Asian mentality. But that is, you follow the system, and the system will help you. So
Yeah.
it works for some people or some societies but again,
Yeah.
still, if you look at that society, it's still very much an insular society.
yeah, I mean, and they certainly, at least at one point, and still are to a certain degree in Japan, anyways, an honor-bound society. Like, that was a huge thing, and social standing is a big part of that. But I think they've gotten away from some of those other things that move them forward. Or I guess maybe they went with too many progressive things to move them forward. That
Japan's a strange case because they kind of if you read one of his other books, his book is Becoming a Barbarian. And
also a good book. But
he takes the corporate them, the them becomes the corporation, and how that those tribal things. Japan's like my idea that I need to express is that Japan is very much the weird one because it kind of adopted that corporate thing hardcore as its tribal core tenets, and it's like most other countries didn't necessarily do that. So for them it was kind of normal. But 50 years ago the tribes were okay, and tribes now we're fine. I think where he's headed is that the tribes and we're being driven and led more appropriately by these big multinational corporations who are using media. And I don't think there's like a Illuminati or anything. I think it's just how businesses and big corporations work. They work so hard.
absolutely. And certain religious groups and ethnic groups are a little bit more insulated to this because they still have a more tribal connection or a insular community, so they're going to be a little bit more protected to this. But then there's a good chunk of people like Western civilization that are flying full speed ahead into globalization and all of that nonsense that goes along with it, because we're tired of being chimpanzees and we want to be the bonobo. Like, that's
I don't want to be a consumer. Like the consumer mindset. And I mean, if you gotta be a consumer of some stuff, I get it, right? But I don't want to be the Coca-Cola, Sony, Nike, that consumer, that person, that the trademark worshiper, for lack. I don't know. I just pulled that out of my head.
You don't want to be a unique individual just like everyone else?
Yeah, I don't want to get in the line, right? The world he described in the passage you just read.
But I mean, like,
I'm not sticking around for that.
I mean, it's pretty accurate as to the way things are right now. I mean, I feel like we do our thing, that we do everything we can to try and not fall into that monotonous, self-pleasuring
I mean,
You
it's
know,
the beginning of Fight
cycle.
Club, man. It's
Yeah.
you remember the beginning of Fight Club?
Whoa,
That's
whoa,
the-
whoa, whoa! We're not allowed to talk about Fight Club.
You're right. Tune in
It
next
was a
week when we
movie.
talk about
Everybody
Fight Club.
thought that was my point.
But that's the beginning of what happens to Tyler Durden,
Yeah.
right? Like he's in that job and he just like, okay, another day,
Get the
another
fuck outta
IKEA
here.
order, another I forget what he was, an insurance actuary or something.
Yeah, something like that.
But it's like
He was a-
another piece of paper to push, but hey, I get to buy my new consumer good, and I get to go at home and flip through my 400 channels on my TV and watch
Not find
someone
anything
do
to watch.
something that.
We should really make Fight Club one of the books, but then we'll say that it's Fight Club, and then we just won't talk about it.
Tonight, tune in for Fight Club, and then not have a show.
just not talking
Fight
about it
Club
at
might go
all.
on the list because it is a good book. It is a good
The
book.
other thing too is the
Um,
movie is way easier to digest than the book is. The book's a little tough. I have one question though. Are we allowed to talk about Bonobo Masturbation Club?
I mean, what happens in
talk
the
about
forest
that?
stays in the forest. But I really do see this as sort of like, this is 10 years ago, and it's, if anything, has gotten more pronounced than what it was.
You really saw it early on.
Yeah,
Really
it's
saw it.
And that
only
was the thing,
everything's
is, like,
only amplified.
We've talked about it on the show through the history of CPP. We've been like, okay, well, people aren't clapping loud enough now. Like we're not. Politicians aren't going to enough pride parades. We're not giving enough special treatment to this group, and now it's like, okay, now we're defunding the police because of reasons that I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's, bake the cake, shave the balls, and then what's the next step?
Defund the
Right.
cops. That's the
Right.
next one.
Well,
And
it's
I
just
mean,
wave after wave of people trying to find a solution because they're too goddamn lazy to think of one of their own, right? You know, it's-
Take
well, I think
responsibility for
that's the
themselves
big
and have
problem
honor.
is you get to be that derastinated, like consumer
Yeah.
interchangeable unit of labor in the economy. Like you don't have a core group. You don't have an honor, like an honor society. You don't have that group of other people, other men that you
Are
look
accountable
up to, or
to.
that you work with, or that you, well, exactly. Accountability is, I think, a big part of it because you're one more asshole on YouTube screaming about inequality or injustice or whatever your
well,
flavor du jour is to be upset about.
and for me, it was the skinny jeans thing. And it was like, if you're wearing skinny jeans, you're hipster, skinny jeans and hipsters. I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. And I realized after I gave it some thought, it wasn't the skinny jeans or the man bun. It was the culture that they worshipped that I found offensive. I don't care what pants you have on. I don't care how you wear your hair. I had hair down to my ass when I was younger. There's nothing to do with that. It has to do with the culture that you are worshiping that I find offensive. It's what you value that is so contradictory to what I value. It has nothing to do with your gender or whether you like men or women. It's the fact that everything you represent is irritating and allergic to me. It fires a reaction in my system I can't tolerate. So then when you tell me I have to agree with you and be friends with you and be in a group with you and go to work with you, it makes me sick. Like I'm physically having a reaction at this point. So that, it's that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm very similar minded in that, like, I don't care. Like, the only thing that I care about is being left alone. Hell, I mean, I've got it, like inked on my skin. Just leave me the fuck alone, right? That's all I care about. But now you get so many people that are not happy to just leave you alone. It's, oh, you have to believe this thing. You have to act a certain way. You have to dress a certain way. You have to do this,
Clap
do that.
harder. You're not clapping loud enough for them.
Yeah, you're not honking the clown nose enough, right? Like,
It started off with, you're not being respectful of my opinion. I feel offended. Well, what about my opinion? What about my feelings? Do you think I feel I enjoy walking down the street and knowing that if I told you my real opinion that you'd call me a bigot, homophobic, Nazi? Like,
yeah. I mean, you are the biggest Nazi of all of us, Benny.
Just because you have an opinion doesn't mean we have to listen to it, or that
that
it's a good one.
it's the
yeah,
I
like,
think that's
blatant hypocrisy of my opinion matter. All opinions matter when it's my opinion, but it's not my opinion.
as long as you agree with me. As
Yeah,
long
I have
as
to
you're the
respect your
globalist
opinion,
feminist,
you have to respect mine. Like that goes both ways.
but we can't respect your opinion. You're a straight white man.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know.
As my father told me when
Welcome
one
to
day
2020.
I told him, oh, maybe I should go, overseas to do university. I'll stay with my grandmother. He's like, no, you're a white male. You have no chance of getting into university in over there. It happened to be South Africa. But yeah, as a white male, I have zero chance of getting into, as a foreigner, zero chance of getting, or even as a local, zero chance of getting into university without extremely high grades and lots of money.
You have to be Asian.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that in South Africa, but it doesn't help in the States. It doesn't help in the States. They went to court and lost, actually, but Harvard has quotas for Asians, not to let too many in.
No.
That's racist.
It is, although it apparently stood up in court.
It is, but it's like inverse racism, so it's okay.
No, that's not a thing. That's not
Reverse
a thing.
racism, yeah.
Yeah, there's
No,
only
no,
racism.
not reverse, like inverse.
Inverse.
No, there's only racism. That's anything else is garbage. It's
Okay.
It's
not a real word.
but yeah, I mean, like like Brent was saying earlier, like with the whole, when you're younger and like I had that, like I want to be a good person. I gotta care about everybody because that's like the nonsense they teach you in school. But like as I've certainly got older,
She realized Billy's an asshole. I don't want to care about him.
That circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller because like you can't care about all those people.
Yeah.
And if you start trying,
can, but then you end up just posting a black square on Instagram because that makes change somehow.
Which really, really pissed me off. Because
I'm helping.
when I wanted to post a morning picture for somebody, I would post a black profile picture and a black cover photo. And I can't do that anymore now. Apparently, I can't do this either. But anyway.
Oh, I do this all the time. It triggers people on the internet.
Yeah,
This will probably be the show cover now.
Yeah.
It's like when the guy doing blackface got arrested. Remember
in Toronto, yeah.
The not Justin Trudeau.
Toronto, I didn't even follow where it was.
Trudeau didn't get arrested for that.
Arresting people for whatever. And I had a black friend who actually unfriended me because of my comment, and I talked to him later, and he's like, well, you don't find this wrong? And I'm like, yeah, I find it wrong, but he has as much right to express his opinion as they do. Freedom is for everybody.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that means it's for assholes and douchebags too, and you can't just limit one guy, not everybody. Right?
Yeah, freedom is that double-edged sword, right? It cuts both ways. I mean, it's the same thing with like, and this is going to be a really controversial comment, but like flag burning. Like everyone's like, oh, it's the worst thing ever. But like, if you live in a truly free society, that's a thing that you should be able to do because, I mean, it's just magic skycloth. Not that I would do it or that I condone doing it, but in a free society, you should be free to do that, to express your opinion, because in a not free society, you absolutely can't do that and it's punishable by death. Right? Like, so being an asshole.
Sorry, this like the button's pushed right there because it's the same thing. I'm seeing that right now with the upside down flags because of the OIC.
Yeah.
And people are losing their minds. And it's like,
I think we even had somebody comment
with freedom. When a guy flips his flag over, you lose your mind and you like put in jail. Hold on a second. I don't think you really understand what freedom means.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That word. You keep using that word.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think you understand what that word means.
Yeah.
It's
the show definitely got some hate mail about the
last 6 years. My entire life to get away from that, right? I've moved out of Toronto, and now I live in the sticks, and I don't talk to anybody. COVID was awesome. I love COVID. You just disconnect from everybody.
Yeah, I actually I have a friend that lives very remotely, and I sent him a message like halfway through. I was like, hey, just so you know, there's a whole pandemic going on in case you haven't left your cave.
Yeah. But, it's time for me to work on me, and that's where, to go back to the book, the mastery part of it, in mastering, doing it all on your own before you go to a tribe with some expectations, right? I've been a member of two or three solid tribes in my time. One of them was the military. Another one was a veterans group. Another one of them, I'll get labeled for this, was an airsoft club. like back when I was 35, which was, you know, a really good group of dudes who we did all sorts of physical stuff, and then airsoft got weird, and we kind of all just grew up and got jobs. But you know, I've taken a step back from that. Yeah, well, yeah, and I mean, this book was one of those catalysts for me to kind of take a step back and go, less is more. It's time to work on me before I can bring something to another tribe, right?
I think it goes both ways. I think it goes both ways in that, and that's sort of where I wanted to end up with, is where, like, at the end of the book, I'm not going to read anymore because I've read enough. But the last chapter of the book was really disappointing for me because it's called How to Start a Tribe. And it's like 4 pages, and it doesn't describe how to actually start a tribe. I mean, it talks about in some very vague general ways, like it should be people in person doing things together. Yeah. Maybe. But
you got to remember, when he wrote that, he was just starting a tribe and didn't really fucking know how to do it.
No, and I get that. And Walda Gang was a whole thing that they went through, and I would like for us to take some time and figure out for the end part in today for the YouTube audience, for the listeners, for the podcast, if you were going to build a tribe now, what would you go about doing? Because I think what Brent touched on just now is important. Part of it is individual mastery of skills, but part of it is also the accountability, the honor group, the doing hard things together, the what you can learn from other men. Because it's not like, yes, you should go and master the thing that you want to go and master as an individual, but you should probably also be accountable to other people who know you're doing that and want to help you succeed in that, or someone that can mentor you, or even if they haven't achieved mastery in that they're at least working with you in a similar path, like you're all pushing in the same direction.
Yeah, I mean, reading this is, you know, there was a lot of stuff in this book that he outlines and kind of puts a name to, or highlights or whatever, that were things that, like, I was doing without thinking about it anyways. Like I said sort of earlier, is that, like, you know, I come by some of these things honestly. And this was some of that, where it's like, I wouldn't say like, oh, I was putting a tribe together, but I mean, certainly through being involved in, you know, the firearms community as a whole, and then sort of even smaller down, like the shooting sports and the people on this panel, you know, it's sort of finding that group of people and like-minded people that share similar values, even though we come from, you know, mostly similar, but somewhat dissimilar backgrounds and all of that. It's still shared values, which means that, you know, our honor system is pretty much the same, and we're all doing things and, you know, that show strength and mastery of certain things that we find value in. I mean, namely shooting, but other things that go along with that.
I like the shooting example as an example of that, because that is one of those skills that there's probably not a lot of courage involved, but the strength and the mastery aspects of it, I think, are there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and, you know, the courage part, I mean, comes from other things and everything else and all of that. And I think, you know, that one's a little bit harder to demonstrate in this day and age, because we're not at war. We're too old and fat to play football and things like that, you know, like, but like we do our best to...
I could play football. I wouldn't be good at it because I'm old and fat, but I could do it.
We'll line up next time at the range and see how ready for football you are.
We do all of these things in our own way, and that was the kind of the neat thing, is sort of having this book sort of shed some light on things that I was doing anyways, and kind of realizing why. And it's not because it's like, oh, someone told. It's just sort of, this is inherently how men act, because it's just the way that we've all acted, which is also kind of infuriating, because you try to be like an individual, but then here you are doing the same thing that like every man since the dawn of time has done. Yeah. But, you know, like, that's fine. Like, that's biology. That's the stuff that's sort of inherent in our DNA and just drives us, because it is what it is. And it was interesting to see that, and how I, like I said, started doing those things without even really thinking about it, because that's what we do.
Yeah, that's like I said. It's
because men build things.
It helped me be self-aware of what is there kind of, you know, why I'm like that, or why I want to do that, or why I want to be a master, to achieve mastery in something. It just helps understand the drives as a man, why you are the way you are. I really took that from this book. It was really good. It's eye opening.
I think in terms of how you actually build a tribe, I think everybody know what a Venn diagram is. The circles overlap, and then there's a common area in the center where all the circles overlap. I think what guys do is they try and have. For me, it would be it's what I'm doing now. Trying to rebuild a social circle that I recently lost, and I won't get into that. Is picking a couple of hobbies that I like doing, and then finding people in those groups, and then finding a subset of those people, and making a tribe within that. I don't think a hobby can be a tribe. I think you have to find connections with people in those hobbies.
Absolutely, like one thing in common, isn't enough. But if you have 4, 5, or 6 things in common, then that's a pretty good start.
Yeah, business, and then your business relations, and then your social relations, and then family, and get
hobby,
overlapping, and
political views, religious views, social views, and all those things slowly narrow it down to that group of here's my core 15 people.
Yeah,
it's not that there aren't, and like I said, like in good times that'll expand where you maybe have a guy that meets all of the criteria except for XYZ, but hey, everything is coming up Millhouse, so we can expand that circle a little bit, and then the women folk will keep us in check when we start to get too aggressive and headbutt over stupid things, and go whoa, slow it down. You need to see this side of the story too. Yeah,
when things get serious, those guys with hair out the airlock.
Yeah, but I mean, in all likelihood, they will likely exit anyways because they'll have people that they fit in with better, right? Because sometimes, like different tribes will work together during certain things because the end result benefits them both. And there's nothing that says you can't do that.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the army analogy he used in the beginning, where you have a division. And a division, and you whittle your way down. That division is made up of a whole bunch of little tribes who all decided it was a good idea to go in that direction and kill those people, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's finding, going out and doing something you enjoy, and then finding like-minded people, and then paring that group down, and maybe introducing across. I know people I shoot with who have introduced to rolling and jiu-jitsu, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think, I don't know, maybe it's one of those things that, like, if you try to do it, I don't think it really works. I think you just have to go out and do your thing, and you will find it, right? Like, if you build it, it'll come. Yeah.
And that's the secret sauce. And you said it it's 2 words. Go out. You have to do it in person.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's a big part of it.
This is not how this gets developed.
Be your authentic self, right?
In this room right now, online, we're started in real life. So go out. That's the key. I think that's probably, if you wanted to take something away from tribe building, it would be do it in fucking real life, not here on the internet.
And you're going to fail a little bit, but that's fine. That gives you experience. That builds character. That builds strength. That builds all of those things.
I love how the new fail culture is coming back, and I love how we're getting exposed to it first because we're shooters. Failure is like the thing to do now. Fail all the time. You fail more often. You fail, the more successful you're going to be. Beautiful. I love it. Just
don't fail one into your thigh when you draw. Like
I shot myself. The remix of that is fantastic.
Failing can be expensive, though.
Yeah, but it's worth it.
Yep,
it's true. Because then you get to meet people.
Yeah.
You might find your tribe.
Well, I think the only other thing that I want to mention with that is that the going out and doing it is going out and doing it, not planning it and then going out and doing it, because you're not going to be able to get it to be like, if you come up with your gang secret handshake and your colors for your matching leather vests and stuff, like you're not likely to find 15 other guys that want to buy the matching leather vest you had. Like, it's not going to work like that.
Find the guys
So
first.
go-
The rest will be organic.
Find
as
the
it
guys
says.
first,
Yeah.
and the rest will figure itself out.
But if anyone
But
wants to
this-
join our gang, use the Amazon affiliate link to purchase your Hawaiian shirt.
Nice.
Links
It's a good
in the
way to
show
get tryouts, anyways, to become part of the gang.
Aren't those racist?
Hey, man, I don't
pretty
care.
sure I saw-
They're okay in my book.
Yeah. Yeah, if you think that they are, light a tiki torch for us so that we know.
If you see it, then it's for you.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
No, yeah, you got to go out. You got to do it. You got to be authentic. That's how you're going to find the people that you click with. If you don't do that, yeah, it's not going to work.
Go do hard things in person. Maybe don't start with doing hard things. Go out in person.
Yeah.
And then start doing hard things with people that you think
You
you're
heard
going to
me
get
go
along
out
with.
where? What? Sorry.
What? No. That's
Yeah, like start a shooting league with your friends, and that will certainly build some character and
or
be a
I mean,
pain in your
really,
ass.
start doing anything with your friends and see
Yeah.
which ones of your friends show up after the third time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
throw a charity event with like a month and a half to plan it.
Yeah.
Been there.
Yeah, several times. Just do something. Test yourself.
Go do
That's
things.
what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. I think unless anybody else has any other closing thoughts on the book, Benny, did you want to talk about the final remarks from the acknowledgments section?
So I left my copy downstairs. He thanks a bunch of people where I was like, cool, I don't know who this guy is, don't know who that guy is. And then I got to the he thanked one guy and Richard Spencer for making his book popular. At first I was like, pretty sure I know that name. So I went and Googled it. And yes, it is the Richard Spencer, who is on the right and is commonly thought of as a neo-Nazi. But again, nothing in the book made me think that he was of that ilk or thought any of those views. Just that
Well, and I mean,
one last line at
so-
the end. And again, that shouldn't take away from the points that we've brought up. I don't think any of them are wrong or misleading in any sense.
No, and I think like, tribalism, although white nationalists probably wouldn't use that word because it's probably a little bit too ethnic for them, but like tribalism lends itself to white nationalism because it's about grouping yourself
Identity politics.
with like-minded, and in this instance, like
Okay.
skin-colored people. But I
Right.
mean, it also works for other groups that are based on religion, skin color, political views, and everything else. So I mean, like the same theory applies to multiple different groups of people, and some of them may be stupid, some of them may be reprehensible, some of them may be just downright evil. Whatever your feelings are, that doesn't mean that the broader concept isn't true. And I think it also then falls back on the whole concept of being a good man versus being good at being a man are two totally separate things. And ideally, the thing that makes you a good man depends on the group of people that you are connected to. Because everybody's morals and values are different based on that group identity. So, yeah, use it sort of as you see fit. But I'm sure, amongst Richard Spencer's group of people, this was a popular book because it kind of plays into their political and social views, right?
Yeah.
Nazis
I think
read
the
the
other
Bible
thing
and went to church,
Yeah. But it's kind of also funny
right?
that, like, you look at, I mean, the left certainly likes to call a lot of people on the right alt-right and Nazi and fascist and throw out all these terms. And I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but like you look at Jack Donovan, who's been associated with the alt-right, and he's like super gay and has been living with a Mexican dude for forever. And then they also do the same to like Milo and start calling them Nazi. And it's like, well, if they were actual Nazis, the actual Nazis did not like the gays very much.
Or the
That doesn't mean
Mexicans
that-
or the blacks that the gays were
Yeah.
involved with, but
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, neither did Shay, but that's a different story. But
Yeah, but it's cool. They put him on T-shirts.
yeah,
We don't talk about him.
so I mean, you know,
Well-
you can certainly be whatever sexuality and still be racist, but I mean,
I never got any sense of hatred from anything in the book, or any of his books for that matter.
no, and in fact, he certainly speaks.
That is the one thing I want to put forward. Until I read that thank you, there was nothing in the book that made me think this guy's a racist Nazi, any of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
And I think that
even-
the information in this book has value.
Well,
and I
I
mean,
think
and I,
to that point, that's why Saul Alinsky's book is on the reading list for a future episode, because like I don't like certain communists from certain places, but like the man is not wrong.
well, exactly, and I think like in this book and certainly in his other book, like he kind of points at different ethnic groups and how they're doing things in the right way and how actually their value system ties them together and insulates them from the negative things. And he points it across several different religious and ethnic groups, saying that these are all things that these groups are doing. And he's actually very well read and has a great understanding of history and how that's all happened, which he puts across in a very easy to understand way. But yeah, like it is a bit of a surprising little twist at the end there, if you will. But yeah, that doesn't mean that the concept and the information is inherently bad. Just
Right.
it, like all things, it can be misinterpreted or used in a bad way, but can't help that really.
Couple other things with Jack Donovan. If you want more Jack Donovan stuff, his website is easy. It's jack-donovan.com. His podcast is called Start the World. I think he's done 2 or 3 iterations of that podcast. The current one, I think they're on like episode 15 or 20. But he had a whole like other year of podcasts before that. He's on Instagram at Start the World, and 2 other. He's written a bunch of other books. Well, I shouldn't say a bunch. He's written several other books. The other 2 books that are in the same vein as The Way of Men, I have read both, and I would encourage anyone that enjoyed this one to read those. And I would encourage them to use our affiliate links in the show notes, because then I get affiliate money from Amazon. Are called Becoming a Barbarian and A More Complete Beast. A More Complete Beast is, I think, more about the strength and mastery aspect of manliness.
To better understand it, there is certainly some prerequisite reading, which he mentions at the beginning of it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also has another book that we call A Sky Without Eagles.
yes,
A Sky Without Eagles only is in print right now. It's not an audiobook, so I had to go
it's
buy
more of
it,
a,
but
a collection of his essays, though. That he's
it's an essay. It's an essay collection. There is some original stuff in there, though. That's actually pretty enlightening.
And there is actually another book that's not in publication anymore, and that was his first book, which is Androgyny, which is about how sexual preference and masculinity don't have to be tied together. So like you can be into dudes but still be masculine and all of that. But he's determined that he doesn't need to publish that anymore because he's fulfilled that now by being masculine and being gay and a Nazi.
Oh my ass.
Also, as we have mentioned throughout the show, if you want the official CPP Big Luau shirt, follow the Amazon affiliate link. The official color is blue. If you want one of the other colors, that's cool, but the official, like, the number 43 style is, like, the official CPP Boogaloo t-shirt.
Yeah, they do also make it in a
shirt.
ladies' cut.
Yeah.
For any ladies listening.
Super easy to find. I should probably just post a link to the ladies' cut version. It's
I'm pretty
it's
sure we
not-
lost all of our lady listeners after this show. All 2 of them.
well. Tune in next week when we talk about radical feminism. No, I'm just kidding. We're never doing that.
Well, I'm sure we've talked about it a lot, just not in a good way.
Well, that's because I don't think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, next month's book, the plan is to do, for the end of July, we're doing Starship Troopers.
Excited to read it.
Cool.
I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all.
Although,
No, I
I mean,
think
I'm
that'll be a good time.
about halfway through right now. And if I hear on the bounce one more time, I'm going to freaking lose it.
Well, with that, we'll quickly bounce through who we need to do outros for. Gavin, where can everybody find you when you're bouncing on the internet?
For the most part, you can find me on the Instagrams at urbex_GTA.
All right. Benny, where can everybody find you?
BennyLewis.ca.
Dave?
Find me at the same place, screen name, Diesel6223 on the IGs.
I appreciate you reading it. It is a podcast, so the audio listeners don't see that.
All right.
I'm glad you read it aloud.
Good edit there. Good edit.
And Brett, do you have any social media or internet stuff that you want to plug?
I have more websites than you can shake a stick at, but if you want to reach out to me at Harm's Way on IG.
Good stuff. As always, my name is Andrew. I've been your host. If you've listened to us ramble for this long, you deserve a discount code. At Ragnarok Tactical, use discount code Patriot at checkout. You'll save yourself some money. Shipping is always flat rate. It's $10. That's the best I can do. Canada Post really sucks for shipping rates. We have to apologize to Rod Giltaca. He read the wrong book. Apparently there is another Jack Donovan. He writes books about VR video game creation. We are not talking about Oculus Rift on today's show. So there was a small misunderstanding on my part. I did not explain that very clearly. So we will try to get Rod on next month to talk about Starship Troopers. The book, not the movie. See how it goes. For all of our listeners out there in podcast land, I would like to remind you that you are the true North, strong and free.